So I'm going to talk you through my two-four profile in human design. So I teach people human design. I talk a lot about all of the different profiles, and what I want to do today is actually talk about my design. So this playlist is me and my design, where I am going to mention the actual textbook descriptions, but more talk you through what does it mean for me. So if you have a two-four profile in human design, depending on how much you've played with it, some of this might sound very familiar to you. Um, when we are looking at the profile in human design, there is two elements to it. There's the two-line energy and the four-line energy. So when I was first learning about mine, I was understanding the line two. So the first number of the profile is comes from the conscious side. So it's something we might recognize more in ourselves. And then the second number in the profile is from the unconscious side. So it's something that we may not necessarily recognize in ourselves as much as, but it is what potentially other people see in us. So each energy has its own, each line has its own energy. So it can make sense to kind of learn about what does the line two mean and how much does that, do you recognize that in yourself? Do you identify with that energy? Do you see those patterns play out? And then start to look at the four and see how much of that four line energy is actually conscious for you. Like, do you, once you start actively thinking about it, recognize the patterns? Um, and then the two full profile itself is, well, how do those two energies come together? What happens when those two energies play out? How does that show up for me? So the two I do very much identify with, the hermit. So there is a lot of retreat energy in the two profiles. So I have a phrase that I use about no more peopling, like I'm done peopling, I'm peopled out, too much peopling. And I very much like to be on my own to recharge and generate my own energy and sort of get back to myself and I was like, generate that energy that I then use on the four. So the four is literally the opposite of that. It's the network where it's about close connections. But I feel that over the years, the language for the human design has kind of evolved, and different people have put different spins on it in different contexts. And obviously, in business, the networker is quite an apt kind of description for the four profile. But for me, the four is more about the connections. So your network becomes your kind of really important piece in your life, but it's about the connection you have to the network, not just having the network. It's genuinely about the connections that you have with people. And I maybe didn't recognize that as much when I first started looking at my human design. I definitely identified with the two and the hermit first, but the four does need to be with the people and wants to be connected to people. But what you have to do, or what I've learned to do, is combine those energies in the right way so that I'm allowing the two the space it wants so that it has the energy to go out and then be the four and connect and foster those connections with people. Now, I actually managed to do that quite well, I think, in terms of I do a lot of voice noting. And so I'm still having the connection with people, but I'm at home and I'm just voice noting people and chatting and talking to my friends constantly, daily. So I get that connection piece. But, as soon as I've finished leaving the voice note or I finish listening to the voice note, it's not expending the same energy in the way that actually going outside and socializing with people and being in a really busy space and going to networking events or going out to parties and doing that kind of thing. So I think my four gets a lot of connection. My four gets a lot of connection from Facebook. I wonder if there is some kind of connection with the different human design profiles and whether or not they like Facebook. I am always on Facebook and I'm messaging people and I'm replying to comments and posting what I do. And that gets me a connection piece. And then there's Zoom calls. So I'm often, signing up for Zoom networking. So there is a very much a connection piece, but a lot of it allows my two to retreat as well, and to have that space away from it as well. Um, the two is also the natural genius, which I found really I can say interesting, but I suppose the truth is I found quite hard to say, oh, okay, I'm a natural genius. So what I've kind of learned to interpret it as is the things that I'm naturally good at are so natural to me that I do not recognize them as a talent. So I don't recognize my own genius until somebody else points it out to me. And then when I look back over my whole life, and the things and the career paths and the choices that I've made and different things. Now, if I look back, it has been because other people have kind of pointed out to me that I'm really good at something. So I left my job in London. I worked at a marketing agency for 13 years in the West End. And I left to start my own business making cakes. Now, making cakes was my hobby. And I just was doing it and I was really good at it. And I didn't really think I was really good at it, but enough people told me over and over and over again that I started to actually then recognize it and go, oh, okay, maybe I am good at this. And so then I left my job and I started my own business as a cake maker and then a wedding. I moved into weddings quite quickly and became a cake designer. And then the same with the business mentoring. I was just doing it naturally. I was just having conversations with everyone I met because I was now self-employed. I was out there doing all the networking. Now I kind of look back, my line four was out there doing all the networking, making all the connections with all the other wedding suppliers, all of the other people in the industry, all of the other business owners, doing the connection piece. And I was naturally just helping them with their business and talking about strategy. My mind is very strategic. Um, it's not something, strategy is not something I've really learned. It's just in me. And when I look at my human design, it makes sense. It's in like I have the right angle cross of planning as my as my life. There's a lot of planning going on there. And so I was just naturally helping people that I was meeting in the online world, of originally the offline world, in the wedding industry. And then it was other people who said, why are you not charging for this? Why are you not charging to help people with their business? Why are you telling them all this stuff for free? You should be charging. And so then I ended up mentoring and went down the kind of path of being a business coach, mentor, guide. Um, and then eventually I pivoted and I changed. That's a different story. Um, but I closed my cake business and I went into the business mentoring world. And then I discovered human design and I started learning about these patterns. And then I was just really quite took to human design quite quickly and quite easily, and explaining human design to other people quite easily. And everyone else started calling out in me, why don't you should be explaining human design to people? You should be. And I think also because I'd now read it in my human design, I noticed the pattern much more quickly than I had with the cakes, with the business mentoring. So I shifted and pivoted a lot more quickly because now I recognized it in myself that that's my pattern. That's my pattern that I follow. Is I'm quite good at something. I do something without thinking. It just sort of happens, and then somebody else helps me to recognize that that's actually my gift. So that's another part of the two profile and how it sort of played out in my world. Um, Another part of the four line is actually those connections that we have actually creates this feeling of safety and security within us, our close connections. And once a kind of connection is made, we don't tend to break them. We don't tend to we don't tend to like to break our connections. And so as a line four, we can be too loyal. in a way. I've had the same mobile provider forever, the same TV provider forever, the same electricity company forever. And it doesn't really matter. They put their prices up, or there might be a better deal somewhere else. As a line four, I'm kind of connected to them, and I don't necessarily change because I don't like going from one thing to the other thing unless I kind of know what's on the other side of it. And what if I did change my mobile provider, but they weren't any good. It's safety and comfort in what you know, and I'd have to be really sure to have the next thing kind of lined up before I leapt into it. And the same with business spaces, join a membership, get connections, and then the space might not be right for me anymore. And I do kind of align for, again, it has to really need to pay attention to, is this connection serving me anymore, or is it time I moved on to something else? So all in all, that's how the sort of 2-4 profile comes together for me in, diary management, having enough spaces in between my clients, like literally having the connection with my one-to-one clients and going onto Zoom and having the conversations, or teaching a webinar or hosting the session in my membership. I love the connection piece that I get. And when you see this video and when people meet me in real life, the fours have a kind of warmth to them, a natural kind of warmth around that connection piece, and people are genuinely often quite attracted to line fours in terms of like a magnetic attraction. Kind of you can feel that connection piece. That's what I'm trying to say, the connection piece with a line four. And so people would think I'm quite outgoing and I'm quite bubbly because that's the side that other people see. Whereas actually, I will get to a stage where my energy for that piece is gone. Like I need to go. Like I'm done. I need to go home now. Like I'm done. The zooming I can, doesn't matter if you're like my best friend in the world. I will get to a point where I'm done now talking to you because I need to be back in my own space. And so how I plan my day, my week, my life, I hold that at the forefront now, and I know how much peopling energy each particular activity is going to take from me. And so I then build in things for the line two to have the recovery. But the other thing it's done is understanding this has given me the language to use to kind of, especially if somebody else knows about human design, I only have to say I've got two in my profile and they're like, oh yeah, okay. Like they just get it. So, it gives me the language to use anyway. If other people in my world understand human design, they know what a 2-4 profile is. Um, and so I don't have to explain myself. And it also has stopped me questioning myself because my whole life we hear, are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? I was like, well, I don't know. Like sometimes I just honestly want to be on my own and speak to nobody, and I do not have any desire or need for anybody to be in my world. And other times I love being with all the people, and I couldn't quite work out like which is it. And the profiles, half of them are in harmony and half of them have like a tug, a pull, a kind of internal struggle. And the 2-4 is one of those that has a kind of internal struggle. And my eternal struggle is being with the people, not being with the people, having the connection piece, wanting to be on my own. But I've got the language, I've got the understanding, and I can manage it now. And I understand what is going on. And I can not beat myself up about it. And I can get to a place where I have the right balance now. So I'd love to know what shows up for you in the 2-4 profile. Are there any pieces that you are maybe not honoring? Are you thinking you should be one or the other and not actually letting the two marry together? So you are maybe honoring the two too much, because the whole point of this profile is both sides of it. So if we go too far into the two and we hermit too much, that's not right for us either. If we go too far into the four energy, that's not right for us either. It's finding our own balance. Now, if you've watched any of my videos, you will have seen me talk about how important it is to look at the human design as a whole. So I specifically, this video is about my experience of living with a 2-4 profile. But what you will still need to do is then add in what else is in your profile, because my little analogy of you can have butter, sugar, flour, eggs, milk. We know what butter does, we know what sugar does, we know what flour does, we know what eggs do. But when we put them together, how we combine them and what we do with them, we might get a cake, we might get Yorkshire puddings, we might get pancakes. Okay, food related analogies for me all day long. But so if you're a projector with a 2-4 profile, that may add a different nuance into how much rest you need. If you are a manifesting generator like me, with most of my centers are defined, um, it's going to play out differently to a 2-4 manifesting generator who may, you can be a manifesting generator with just two centers defined. So everything else in your chart is going to also layer on top different pieces that you need. But to start your journey and to start to understand, we have to understand the pieces individually, right? Because we just have to, like anything that we learn. But then you can start to layer it all together and go, okay, what does the 2-4 profile mean for me? Which pieces am I ignoring? Which pieces are maybe, especially the four, if you have the two and the four, if you remember the four was on the unconscious side, you might not recognize those parts where you don't want to sever the connections and you stay in spaces too long, or you stay in relationships, friendships too long, and you don't want to move on. So because the four's on the unconscious side, that might be hidden and you might have to bring that awareness forward. Now, even though the two is on the conscious side, the part of the two that remains unconscious, no matter what side it's on, is that piece where, because for us it's just easy, we don't recognize that it is our skill, our genius, a natural talent, because we didn't have to try particularly hard. So we don't really see it as a talent because, most things and the way the narrative is and the descriptions out in the world and stuff, you have to try really hard at something to be good at it often. Well, a line two has natural talents that it doesn't recognize in itself. So you might actually be listening to this because you have a 2-4 profile person in your world, maybe your partner, a friend, a client, or maybe a child. And so if you're sort of listening to this, it's like, okay, well, how can I then help somebody else? If I've got a 2-4 profile in my life, I need to allow them that space to do the toing and the froing between the two and the four. I've got a two person in my life and they're really not recognizing their own genius. How can I allow them to do that? How can I help them to do that? Okay, I do have a 2-4 profile person in my life and they really are not very good at cutting those cords, leaving those spaces, changing. How can we bring that into awareness for them? So yeah, there's so much you can do with this piece, whether it's for you, whether it's for somebody else in your world, whether it's a client. Um, but yeah, I hope that helps. So there's going to be a whole series on this, me and my design, um, because although I teach human design as a whole, with the stuff that's in my profile, I can actually share with you how that plays out for me. I do use a lot of analogies in my other content, so based on clients, friends, other people in my world who are the other profiles, etc. But yeah, this particular playlist is just going to be about me and my design. If you want to know more, you can scan my QR code, or there's links below if you want to start exploring your design further too.